Black CEO was kept waiting at her own office. 10 minutes later, she fired the manager. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's get back to the story. Step back, ma'am. This lobby is for employees only. The voice hit like a gavel. Sharp, public final. Danielle Brooks didn't move. She stood tall in her crimson suit, a folder in one hand, the morning sun cutting clean lines across her face. The security guard, a broad man with decades of authority stitched into his uniform, tightened his grip on her arm. Around them, the hum of Monday morning froze. Phones paused mid-scroll. Coffee cups hovered mid-air. Sir, she said evenly, I have an appointment upstairs. He smirked. Not today, you don't. No visitors allowed. Wait outside. Her eyes didn't waver. She simply looked at him, calm as glass. Two interns at reception exchanged uneasy glances. One whispered, "She doesn't look like a visitor." The other shrugged, already raising a phone. Across the room, a man in a navy suit muttered under his breath, "Why is she even here dressed like that?" The guard's hand tightened. I said outside. Her folder slipped slightly, papers whispering against the marble floor, but her posture never broke. Silence gathered around her like armor. The air changed, dense, charged, judgment, heavy enough to touch. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now back to Danielle. Do you know who you're talking to? Someone asked from behind a young woman's voice, quiet but firm. The security guard scoffed without looking. Yeah, another one trying to get upstairs without clearance. Danielle's gaze shifted just slightly, meeting the young woman's eyes. No words, just recognition, that silent moment when two people know the scene is wrong but can't yet name why. At the far end of the lobby, the manager appeared. Polished suit, cold smile. What's going on here? She was trying to walk in, the guard said quickly. The manager looked Danielle up and down, his tone slow, deliberate. And you are? Danielle's reply was simple. On time. But no one caught the warning hidden inside those two words. Because in 10 minutes, the building that wouldn't let her in would learn exactly who they had told to wait outside. The elevator chimed somewhere above, a soft metallic note against the growing hush. Danielle didn't move. Her stillness made everyone else fidget. The security guard shifted his stance, tugging at his belt, as if authority suddenly felt heavier to carry. I said, "Step back." His voice cracked this time, the echo thinner. Confidence leaking, Danielle lowered her folder, eyes steady. "What's your name?" "Doesn't matter," he muttered. "It will," she said quietly. Across the lobby, the manager, Mark Holloway, straightened his tie. "Look," he sighed, "we've got investors arriving. You can't just stand here blocking the entrance. If you need HR, go around the side door." Danielle blinked once, slow. "I don't need HR. I have a meeting in conference room A." Mark gave a dry laugh. "Conference A is for executive use only." "I know." A few phones lifted again. The intern, Maya, bit her lip, whispering to the colleague beside her. "She's calm. Like she knows something." Her friend whispered back, "Or she's crazy. Either way, this is wild." Mark stepped closer. "Listen, you seem lost. Maybe you're looking for a different building. There's a staffing agency across the street." Danielle tilted her head, almost a smile. "You think I'm here for a job interview?" He shrugged, grinning slightly. "It happens." For a second, the lobby light shifted as clouds moved outside, like the world itself exhaled. Danielle's reflection in the marble floor looked taller than she was. She glanced toward the receptionist's desk. "How long have you worked here?" she asked the woman, typing nervously behind the counter. 6 months, the receptionist stammered. Danielle nodded. "Then you already know what respect is supposed to look like." Mark rolled his eyes. "Enough of this." He waved to the guard. "Call the front desk supervisor. Have her removed." But the guard hesitated, hand hovering near the radio, unsure now. Danielle simply turned toward the glass doors, watching her own reflection framed in light and steel. Somewhere deep in her tone, the patience began to thin. 10 minutes, she murmured under her breath. "That's all it takes to show people who they are." Mark frowned. "What did you say?" She didn't answer. She just looked past him up toward the company logo gleaming in brushed silver above the reception wall, Brooks Capital. And for the first time, the man who thought she didn't belong started to feel very, very small. The lobby clock ticked loud enough to cut through the air. 9:07 a.m. Danielle had been standing there for 7 minutes, and the energy had shifted completely. What began as condescension was curdling into discomfort. Mark's voice carried again. "Security, what's the holdup? Get her out of here before clients start walking in." But no one moved. The guard's radio hissed softly unanswered. The receptionist typed nothing, her hands frozen above the keyboard. Danielle spoke quiet but sharp enough to slice through the noise. "You keep saying get her out. Maybe ask what you're pushing out." Mark's smile faltered. "Excuse me, you heard me." He chuckled brittle. "Ma'am, this is a place of business, not a place of judgment," she interrupted, eyes locked on him. "Because from where I'm standing, that's all it's been." Someone near the elevator coughed to break the tension, but it only deepened. Maya, still pretending to sort mail at her desk, whispered to her coworker, "She's not scared at all." The coworker whispered back, "She's about to get herself fired and she doesn't even work here." Mark leaned in, lowering his voice like it was mercy. "Look, this isn't personal. You just don't fit the image we want greeting our partners." Danielle raised an eyebrow. "And what image is that?" He hesitated. "Professional." She smiled faintly. "I see." The pause that followed felt like a storm holding its breath. From outside, the sound of heels approached the assistant manager, Karen, clutching her tablet. "Mark, what's going on?" she asked, scanning the scene. "This woman's trespassing," he said quickly. Karen frowned. "Did she say her name?" "She doesn't need to," Mark snapped. "She's not on the list." Karen looked at Danielle. "Ma'am, may I ask?" Danielle met her gaze, calm and deliberate. "You may, but the answer's not for you yet." The guard shifted again, uneasy now, his tone softening. "Maybe we should check upstairs first." Mark shot him a glare. "I run this floor. She's not cleared." Danielle exhaled slowly, like a verdict forming. Her voice dropped lower. "You're right. You do run this floor." Mark smiled, thinking he'd won. "But the floor," she added, "doesn't belong to you." Karen blinked, trying to piece the tone behind those words. She opened her mouth to speak, then stopped. Because through the glass, she noticed 2 black SUVs pulling into the loading bay. The kind corporate sends when someone important arrives. The first one parked directly under the sign that read, "Reserved for Executive Board." And Danielle Brooks finally looked at her watch. 9 minutes in. One more to go. The sound of car doors closing outside echoed through the marble lobby. Heads turned. Mark didn't. He was too busy trying to save the illusion of control. "Ma'am, this is the last time I'll ask politely," he said, his voice firm but fraying. "Step outside before I have to call the police." Danielle's eyes lifted to his. Calm, patient, unmoved. "You should call them," she said softly. "It'll make a clearer record of what happens next." The words landed wrong, too, composed, too certain. The receptionist, who'd been silently trembling, stopped pretending to type. Maya, the intern, was standing now, half hidden behind a potted plant, her phone tilted just enough to capture the moment. Mark Karen whispered, "Maybe we should check her name. What if? What if nothing?" He cut in, snapping sharper than he meant to. "I don't take orders from strangers or interns." The word interns hung in the air, stinging harder than he realized. Danielle watched the entire exchange, the corners of her mouth curving slightly. "That's the problem with borrowed power," she said. "It always needs an audience." Mark scoffed, trying to laugh it off. "Is that supposed to mean something? It will," she answered. Through the glass, a pair of figures appeared near the SUV, 2 assistants in black suits carrying tablets. They moved with a precision that made the building staff nervous. Someone whispered, "Those are from corporate." Maya's phone trembled in her hands as she whispered to her coworker, "I think she's somebody." "Then why doesn't she just say it? Maybe she doesn't need to," Maya said, eyes never leaving Danielle. The guard stepped forward again, half-heartedly this time. "Ma'am, if you'll just come with me," Danielle turned her head, voice level. "You've said that 4 times. The next word you say will decide whether you still work here." The guard froze. Even Mark went still. Something in her tone, not anger, not threat, just authority, tightened the air like a wire about to snap. Karen's phone buzzed. She looked down and the color drained from her face. An internal message from HQ flashed. "Notice CEO Danielle Brooks arriving for unannounced branch audit. Full cooperation required." Her eyes darted up to Danielle, then to Mark. "Oh my God," she whispered. Danielle finally moved. One slow step forward. 10 minutes, she said, glancing at the clock. "And time's up." Outside, the glass doors slid open. 2 assistants stepped in. Mark blinked, lost for words. The guard's hand fell from his belt. The building wasn't quiet anymore. It was holding its breath. The moment the glass doors hissed open, the lobby transformed. Every whisper folded into silence. The two assistants in black suits walked in with calm, precision earpieces, glinting tablets in hand posture sharp enough to cut marble. Mark instinctively straightened his blazer, unaware that the air had already turned against him. "Can I help you?" he asked, voice pitched too high to sound confident. Neither of them answered. One nodded politely to Danielle before saying into her earpiece, "Arrival confirmed." Maya's camera caught the subtle flicker across Mark's face, that instant where arrogance meets recognition. His throat bobbed, his eyes darting toward Karen, who was still staring at her phone, pale as paper. "Sir," the male assistant said evenly, "we'll need the lobby cleared for protocol verification." Mark forced a laugh. "Protocol verification? What is this, a security drill?" "No," the assistant replied. "An audit." Danielle finally stepped forward, her heels striking the marble with measured rhythm. "Mr. Holloway," she said, her tone neither loud nor soft, just inevitable. Mark froze. "How do you know my name?" She stopped in front of him, close enough for him to see his reflection in her eyes. "Because every complaint that crossed your desk this quarter crossed mine first." He blinked, confusion flickering into panic. "What are you talking about?" Karen tried to speak, but the assistant beside her raised a hand gently. "Miss Brooks," she said, "the internal feed is live. All departments are observing." The words landed like thunder, no one could hear, but everyone could feel. Maya's phone slipped slightly in her grip. She whispered, "Did she just say Miss Brooks?" Her friend nodded slowly. "As in Brooks Capital." Danielle didn't flinch. She simply turned toward the receptionist. "Thank you for your patience," she said, voice low but kind. The young woman looked like she might cry. "You did the right thing by staying silent. Sometimes silence is the only truth that survives the noise." Then Danielle turned back to Mark, who now looked cornered in the very space he thought he commanded. "10 minutes ago," she said, "you decided who belonged in this building." Mark swallowed. I didn't mean yes, you did." Her tone didn't rise. It didn't need to. Behind her, the assistants began logging entries on their tablets. Access badges flickered red on screens across the security desk. One by one, locks engaged. The guard stepped back, whispering under his breath, "Oh my God." Danielle looked at him briefly, not with anger, but with clarity. "You just did your job." He abused his. Mark tried one last time to steady his voice. "You could have said who you were from the start." Danielle's gaze didn't waver. "And deprive you of the lesson?" The clock ticked again, 9:10 a.m. Exactly 10 minutes. The moment everything turned. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. The truth was in the room now, and it was loud, even in silence. Danielle Brooks, the woman they'd tried to remove, was standing in the middle of her own lobby. Mark stumbled back half a step as if the floor beneath him had changed shape. You should have said something sooner," he muttered. Danielle looked at him the way sunlight looks at glass, indifferent, unbothered. "You didn't ask. You assumed." Karen's fingers trembled as she clutched her tablet. "Ma'am, I didn't know. You thought following the loudest voice made you safe," Danielle said quietly. "It never does." The assistant nearest the door spoke into her comm again. "HQ confirms live feed active." HR and legal tuned in. Every screen in the lobby flickered the digital posters, the stock tickers, even the corporate welcome board. Suddenly, the Brooks Capital logo glowed brighter, and beneath it a line of text scrolled, "Internal Audit Conduct Review in Progress." Gasps filled the air. Someone whispered, "Is this real?" Another muttered, "She's streaming this." Danielle turned her gaze, sweeping the room like a slow verdict. "I didn't come here for revenge," she said. "I came for perspective, to see how this branch treats the people it thinks can't fight back." Mark's mouth opened, then closed again. "Look, Miss Brooks, you called security on your CEO," she interrupted, calm as a blade. "That's not a mistake. That's culture." Maya stepped forward without realizing it, her phone still recording at her side. "Miss Brooks," she said softly, I knew something was wrong. I wanted to speak up." Danielle nodded. "And now you did. Don't ever wait for permission to do the right thing." Mark's voice cracked. "This isn't fair." "No," Danielle replied. "Fairness would have been me walking in and being treated like everyone else. This is accountability." Her assistant handed her a tablet. She scrolled, tapped once, then looked back at Mark. 7 employee complaints in 3 months. 4 ignored. 2 dismissed. 1 deleted. Mark's shoulders dropped. Those were minor. "They were people," she said. Karen's eyes glistened. "What happens now?" Danielle tilted her head slightly. "Now, we reset the standard." She looked toward the receptionist, then to Maya. "Send a memo. Company-wide professionalism is not appearance. Respect is not optional." "Yes, ma'am," Maya whispered. The assistant confirmed something into her comm. Behind the front desk, Mark's ID card beeped red, followed by the guard's tablet flashing, Access revoked, and Danielle Brooks, still calm, said the line that would replay across every phone in the room: power doesn't reveal who you are. It reveals who they are when they think you have none. The room exhaled and the world outside kept watching. Mark's ID badge blinked red again, one long, unbroken tone that filled the lobby like a siren only he could hear. His hands shook as he tried to reset it against the scanner. Nothing. The device rejected him over and over, cold and mechanical, until he finally stopped trying. Danielle stood just a few feet away, still and composed. "That sound," she said softly, "is what accountability feels like. It's not loud, it's final." Karen turned toward her, voice trembling. "Please, Miss Brooks, I didn't mean." Danielle lifted a hand. "You followed orders you didn't believe in. That's how prejudice hides behind policy." The words landed heavy. Even the guard lowered his head, shame creeping past the badge on his chest. Maya, still recording, whispered into her mic. "She's not even angry. She's just in control." Her coworker murmured back, "I've never seen a room this quiet." Danielle took one step closer to Mark. "Tell me," she said, her tone measured, "what made you so sure I didn't belong?" Mark swallowed hard. "You walked in without an escort, no appointment, no warning, and that's enough to decide someone's worth?" she asked. He hesitated. It's not usually, but it was today, she finished for him. For a moment, the only sound was the distant hum of air vents. Then Danielle looked to the receptionist. "How many times this month have you seen someone turned away at this desk for not looking the part?" The young woman hesitated, then said quietly, "Too many." "Good," Danielle replied. "Now we fix it." Mark's voice cracked as he tried to salvage dignity. "You can't judge an entire branch off one misunderstanding." Danielle's gaze sharpened. "No, but I can judge a leader by how he handles it." She turned to her assistant. "Pull the employee review logs. I want every ignored complaint reopened. Start with HR's dismissal patterns." "Yes, ma'am," the assistant said, already typing. Maya glanced toward the glowing corporate sign above them, her reflection faint against the silver. "She's rewriting the rules right here," she whispered. Danielle turned back to Mark. "You know," she said, 20 years ago I stood in a lobby just like this one. Different building. Same look in someone's eyes, the one you just gave me. It said I didn't fit the image." Mark's lips parted, but no apology came out. Danielle's tone softened, but only slightly. "That look built me. It taught me what kind of company I'd never run, what kind of people I'd never promote." Karen stepped forward, voice breaking. "Please, what happens to us?" Danielle glanced at her, watched the same silver face catching the lobby lights. "Whatever you've earned," she said quietly. "Nothing more, nothing less." Outside, a small crowd had gathered near the glass phones raised. Inside, justice had already begun its audit. The first notification chimed across the lobby screen's internal compliance review active. A digital heartbeat pulsed through every monitor. Red lines turned green. Files opened on tablets that only the corporate office should have had access to. Danielle's assistant stood at opposite corners of the lobby, quietly orchestrating what looked less like chaos and more like precision surgery. Mark's voice cracked. You can't do this here." Danielle tilted her head. "Where, better, the problem started here." Karen backed up a step, pressing against the reception desk as if the polished marble might swallow her whole. The guard took off his cap and held it tight in both hands. For the first time since the morning began, his eyes looked human again. Danielle turned toward the receptionist. "Pull every access record from the past month. Any visitor denied entry without cause." The young woman hesitated, then nodded, quickly grateful for direction. Across the lobby, Maya whispered into her phone's mic. "It's happening live. She's auditing them in real time." Her friend murmured, "This is gonna break the internet." Mark tried to reclaim control, his tone wobbling between arrogance and fear. "You're humiliating good employees for one mistake." Danielle met his gaze. "Mistake," she echoed. "A mistake ends with an apology. This started with a prejudice and ended with policy." Her words rippled through the air, steady as a verdict. She turned to her assistant, a tall man in a gray suit. "Activate Protocol 6. He nodded. "Confirmed." HR and legal synced. Incident time-stamped and logged. Karen's tablet vibrated again. The screen now displayed her own profile, attendance, reports, disciplinary actions, everything. She gasped. "You're exposing everyone." Danielle's expression didn't change. "I'm exposing truth. The difference is choice." From the mezzanine above, employees began gathering at the glass railings, watching the scene below unfold. Whispers turned into a low hum of disbelief. Danielle's tone softened, but the steel stayed beneath it. "This is not a punishment," she said, looking upward. "It's a mirror. Every company claims to value diversity until diversity walks through the front door without an appointment. Maya stepped forward, slightly trembling but resolute. Miss Brooks, Danielle turned to her. I just wanted to say, thank you for doing this out loud. Danielle's eyes met hers, and for the first time that morning, something like warmth crossed her face. Change doesn't whisper Maya. It walks in. Behind her, Mark's phone buzzed violently. He glanced down. The message read suspended pending review. He looked up, eyes wide. You're ending my career. Danielle shook her head slowly. No, Mark. You did that the moment you decided someone's presence was a threat instead of a possibility. And with that, the audit officially began, not just on paper, but in every mind watching. The lobby no longer felt like an office. It felt like a courtroom, silent, electric, waiting for the verdict it already knew. Danielle Brooks stood in the center of it all, the glass walls behind her mirroring her every move. Mark's badge flickered one last time before the system issued its final tone. Access permanently revoked. He stared at it like a lifeline cut mid-breath. You can't, he began. I already did, Danielle said. Karen covered her mouth, tears brimming. Miss Brooks, please. I didn't mean to disrespect. Danielle looked at her eyes, steady but not cruel. This isn't about disrespect, Karen. It's about recognition. You didn't see me, and that blindness is what keeps ceilings intact. Across the mezzanine, employees leaned in closer. Phones hovered mid-air. The live stream count on Maya's screen ticked past 4,000 viewers. Danielle took a breath, then walked toward the company logo, etched in steel behind the reception desk. Her reflection joined it, her name literally mirrored beneath Brooks' capital. When I founded this company, she said, voice carrying through every corner of the lobby, I promised myself it would never look like the places that made me small. But it did, because people like you made assumptions instead of impact. Mark's voice trembled. You're twisting this into a spectacle. Danielle turned sharply. No, Mark. You made it one the moment you raised your voice to someone you thought had none. The sentence hung in the air like smoke after a shot. Her assistant stepped forward. Ma'am, the board has joined the live session. They're requesting next steps. Danielle nodded once. Proceed. On every lobby screen, the company's official broadcast logo replaced the stock ticker. A caption appeared, Statement from CEO Danielle Brooks on Equity and Accountability. Mark whispered to himself. This can't be happening. Danielle turned back toward the crowd. For years, people like me have been told to wait for recognition, for opportunity, for fairness. I waited once. It built me. But it won't build anyone else. Karen's tears slipped free. What happens now? Danielle's voice was low measured. Now every manager in this building will attend mandatory reevaluation. Starting with you, Mark, he swallowed. Reevaluation, performance, conduct. Humanity, she said. Only one of those can't be trained. The assistant tapped her tablet. The main doors locked automatically with a quiet click. No one moved. Danielle looked at the faces around her. Fear, awe, reflection. And then she said almost to herself, they said justice takes time. Turns out it only takes proof in 10 minutes. Maya's stream caught that line perfectly. The comments exploded. And for the first time that morning, the crowd in the lobby began to applaud. Applause in a corporate lobby was never supposed to sound like that, uneven, uncertain rising from corners where courage had been quiet too long. It wasn't celebration, it was release. Mark's posture wilted. The shoulders that had once filled the room now sagged like fabric without a frame. You're destroying everything I built here, he said, voice trembling. Danielle didn't blink. You built fear. I'm dismantling it. Her words fell with the weight of fact, not fury. Karen, still at the reception desk, whispered. She's rewriting the rules in real time. The receptionist beside her nodded silently, tears streaking down her cheeks. Maya panned her phone toward Danielle again. The chat feed was a flood. She's a legend. This is history. I've never seen power look this calm. Danielle turned slightly, her tone soft but unyielding. Mark, do you know how many qualified people never even make it through those doors because someone behind this desk decides they don't fit the image? Mark said nothing. His eyes darted between the cameras and the floor. I built Brooks Capital so that no one would have to prove they belonged. And yet here we are, proof of everything I tried to fix. Her assistant handed her a report already compiled from the internal audit feed. Danielle scanned the screen. 4 written complaints ignored. 2 terminated without review. 1 whistleblower reassigned. She looked up. That's not management. That's maintenance of bias. Karen tried to interject, voice breaking. Please, Miss Brooks. If we'd known it was you, Danielle's tone cut gently but decisively, you'd have behaved differently. And that's the point. Outside the glass, the morning sun had risen high enough to cast their reflections across the marble marks small and blurred. Danielle's crisp and centered beneath the logo. She turned toward the onlookers on the mezzanine. I don't want loyalty. I want integrity. If it disappears the moment you're not watched, it was never there. Her assistant's voice came through the earpiece. Headquarters confirms system lock completed. Revoked profiles archived. Good, Danielle said. Send HR my directive. Any future hiring or promotion must include diversity oversight. Every rejection must be reviewed by 2 people, one of them from a background, unlike the applicants. Mark's voice cracked again. You think policy can change people? No, she said. But it can expose them. The silence that followed was heavier than scolding, lighter than mercy. Danielle took a breath, turned to the staff still frozen behind the desks, and said, If you ever wonder what leadership looks like, it's not who stands tallest, it's who stands accountable. The clock on the wall blinked 9:12 a.m. 10 minutes had passed. A culture had just fallen. The lobby was still humming with the echo of her last sentence when Danielle's assistant stepped closer. Miss Brooks, he said quietly, the board is requesting immediate confirmation of disciplinary actions. Danielle nodded, her expression unreadable. Execute the terminations. Effective now. Mark's eyes went wide. Wait, you can't. She turned to him, voice calm but absolute. I can. And I just did. The assistant tapped twice on his tablet. The sound of digital chimes filled the air, each one a quiet, precise note marking the end of a career. Mark's company credentials revoked. Karen's account suspended pending review. Even the security guard's badge pinged red, though Danielle raised a hand before his final alert. Not him, she said softly. He followed orders he didn't write. The guard's lips parted, confusion melting into relief. Ma'am, I didn't mean to, I know, Danielle interrupted. Just make sure you never confuse policy with principle again. The remaining staff stood frozen eyes, darting between screens and floor tiles. No one dared speak. Danielle turned to the mezzanine where dozens of employees watched from above. Let me be clear, she said, her voice echoing through glass and steel. This is not vengeance. It's course correction. Maya's camera captured every word, every breath. The comment section scrolled faster than it could load. Accountability looks good on her. 10 minutes changed a culture. This needs to be in every boardroom. Danielle continued, her tone steady, commanding without shouting. Some of you will say, I embarrassed this branch. You're wrong. It embarrassed itself when it treated identity like a threat. She looked at the receptionist again, the one who'd stayed quiet watching. You saw it happen, Danielle said. Next time, don't just record it, speak it. Silence is complicity dressed in professionalism. The young woman nodded, trembling. Yes, ma'am. Danielle's assistant glanced up from his tablet. Terminations confirmed. Legal notified. Audit archived under your direct authorization. Thank you, Danielle replied. Close the report. Mark finally broke, voice shaking. Do you even hear yourself? You're destroying people's lives. Danielle met his gaze unwavering. I didn't destroy anything that wasn't already rotting from within. For a brief second, the hum of the building's ventilation filled the room again, cold, mechanical, almost cleansing. Danielle stepped back toward the glass doors, her reflection moving alongside her. 10 minutes ago, I was invisible in my own company, she said. Now you'll remember every face you dismissed as unimportant because one of them might own the ground you're standing on. She turned to her assistant. Have security escort Mr. Holloway and Miss Graham out respectfully. Yes, ma'am. And as they walked toward the exit, the cameras kept rolling. The world kept watching. And for once, justice didn't look like outrage. It looked like order restored. The glass doors slid open again, letting in a rush of sunlight that scattered across the marble. Mark and Karen walked out slowly, their reflections dissolving against the light. Behind them, the silence they left was heavy, not from fear anymore, but from realization. Danielle Brooks stood in the center of the lobby. She owned her posture unshaken. Her assistant handed her a phone. We're live, Miss Brooks. 35,000 viewers and climbing. She nodded once. The camera turned toward her, and for a heartbeat, it was just her, the city behind her, and the truth she'd been carrying all along. When I was 24, she began, her voice. Steady, rich, deliberate. I walked into an office not unlike this one. I was qualified, prepared, hopeful. The receptionist looked me up and down and said, We're not hiring for janitorial positions today. I didn't correct her. I just walked out, sat in my car, and promised myself that one day I'd own a building where no one would ever feel smaller than they are. She paused. Every face in the lobby lifted. That promise built this company. But promises mean nothing without practice. And today I watched what happens when good systems are run by small minds. Maya wiped her eyes, still holding the phone steady. The comments streamed by Preach. That line hit. She's rewriting the culture. Danielle continued. This isn't just about me. It's about every person who's ever been told to wait outside their own opportunity. To them I say this, don't shout for permission. Build the door yourself. And when they try to close it, own the building. A ripple went through the crowd. Even the security guard straightened his face wet with quiet respect. Danielle turned slightly toward the receptionist and the interns. You'll lead the new standard, she said. Compassion first. Bias last. Every client, every employee, every visitor equal until proven otherwise. Yes, ma'am, they answered in near unison. She exhaled the weight of the morning, finally settling but not dimming her fire. Power doesn't have to scream, she said softly. It just has to stand. Her assistant nodded. We're clear to end the broadcast. Danielle looked straight into the lens one final time. I don't need to record justice, she said. I am the result of it. The stream ended. The crowd stayed still. The clock read 9:15 a.m., and as Danielle Brooks walked through the same doors that once tried to keep her out, the city outside seemed to bow, not in fear but in recognition. Because that morning a black CEO didn't just reclaim her office, she reset the definition of belonging.